Hey guys, I wanted to walk you through how to do this assignment. It is called the molecular clock. And what we're doing now is we're going to be talking about DNA and how it changes over time. But first, let's go back. Let me bring you to some concepts that are important to understand. So by this time of the year, we should know that DNA is used to make RNA, and RNA is then used to make proteins. And so our DNA is nothing more than a set of instructions on how to make proteins right here. So here's our protein. And proteins are made of amino acids. So here you can see this chain of amino acids. When it folds together, it makes a protein. And proteins do jobs in your body that give you traits such as blue eyes or brown hair or large teeth or fast growing fingernails. So right here, these amino acids, these are going to, we have a whole bunch of them right here. Let me read some off to you. Some of them are named alanine, cysteine, aspartic acid, glutamic acid, phenylalanine, etc., etc., etc. So if there is a change in how we make our DNA, so if there's a mutation, or it's changed by when through sexual reproduction, when genes interact and form new genes, then it's going to change the way that the protein is made. So this is the set of instructions on how to make proteins. And if you change the sequence of the A's, the T's, the C's, and the G's, then you're going to change how the protein is made. And that's going to change the order of the alanines, the cysteines, the aspartic acids, etc., etc. So in this assignment that we're doing, we're going to be looking at the numbers of differences that we can find in the protein called the cytochrome C protein. And so what this means is if this were the cytochrome C protein right here, we're looking at the cytochrome C protein in many different organisms or types of organisms. And we're looking at the numbers of differences in the amino acid sequence of the cytochrome C to see how closely related so these organisms are. So if there's lots of differences in the amino acid sequence, well, that's going to mean that there's lots of differences in the DNA. So the more closely related we are related to something, the more similar our DNA is, the more similar we have A's, T's, C's, and G's in the same order. So here we are looking at a cladogram, and a cladogram is a way that we organize species based on their relatedness. And so here we can see humans and rhesus monkeys. We're going to assume, since they're very closely related, that they're not going to have many differences in their cytochrome C sequence, or they're not going to have very many differences in their DNA, and therefore they're not going to have very many differences in their cytochrome C sequences. And what we first have to do is we have to go to the back page of this assignment. And let me blow this up big for you. We're going to compare, we're going to compare the sequences, first off, of humans and rhesus monkeys. So here we see that there's a G and a G, so that amino acid is the same. D and D, V and V, E and E, K and K, G and G, K and K, K and K, I and I, I and I. And because I've done this before, I can tell you that this whole top row is exactly the same. And if we go to the second row, because it extends 2 rows, we can see that there is N, N, K, K. They're still the same. N, N, K, K, G, G, I. Oh, there's a difference right here. Let me grab a pen. Blue. And where is it? Right here. There's a difference. And then once again, from experience, I can tell you that, this went away. I can tell you that the rest of this line is exactly the same. And so there is one difference between the rhesus monkey and the human. So I'm going to put a number 1 here. Number 1. And so what I want you to do is to find the number of differences between humans and kangaroos, humans and snapping turtles, humans and bullfrogs, humans and tunas. And you're going to put those numbers here on the cladogram. And we're going to use this as a tool to determine how closely related we are to all of these different organisms. And so, does the data from the amino acid sequence generally agree with the anatomical data that was used to make the cladogram? So I can tell you that the numbers of amino acid sequence differences is going to increase the further along down the line. And so when we say anatomical difference or anatomical data, what they're saying is, does the anatomy or the way that the organism is made, does it make sense compared to what the DNA is saying? And so we'll see that as the kangaroo is going to have more differences in its DNA. And it makes sense because humans and kangaroos are more different anatomically than humans and rhesus monkeys. And if we compare the DNA of a snapping turtle to that of a human and a kangaroo and a rhesus monkey, we're going to see that humans are more closely related to kangaroos than we are to snapping turtles. And so we are more similarly made. So we have hair, we're mammals, right? We are going to therefore have more DNA in common. And so, yeah, the anatomical data or the anatomy of each of these organisms is going to align closely with the genetic data or the data that we get from the cytochrome C. So let's go to the next slide. So do organisms with fewer shared anatomical traits also have amino acid differences, or also have more amino acid differences? Yes. So it's kind of the same question. So if an animal is anatomically more different than to the human, then we're going to have more differences in the DNA, or therefore more differences in the cytochrome C. So we're going to use this sheet. Let me shrink this back down. We're going to use this sheet to find all of the differences from the of the organisms. And it's going to be, you can do it online, but it'll be easier if you can print it out to find the differences or to find the number of differences of each of these organisms. When you have found all of the different numbers of differences in cytochrome C, go ahead and write those numbers here. You're going to write those numbers here. Oops, sorry, just kidding, right here. And then we answered 4 and 5 together. I'm going to have you answer the rest of these questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email. And when you are done, hand this in on PowerSchool. All right, have a great day.